Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner. Is NuGet a candy in a package? I'm your co-host Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on December 20th, 2024. Kris. Finishing the year up, coming into the holiday season. I think of that NuGet in a candy.
It's a holiday candy, isn't it?
I think, I don't even know. What is, you have to ask ChatGPT or some of these other models to see exactly what a NuGet is. But today we had the opportunity to learn all about NuGet and how it can help a Business Central developer or an ISV within the life cycle of their applications. With us today, we had the opportunity to speak with Christophe Krieg.
I was going to make a comment that Christophe Krieg sounds like Kris Kringle.
I was going to say that during the episode.
Who brought in a candy called NuGet. What a Christmas gift.
Good afternoon, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Great. How about you?
Excellent. That's excellent. I'm a little tongue-tied this morning for some reason. I guess it's just...
It's Friday.
It's Friday, and for the most of us, it's the last day before Christmas. The last work day.
Oh, yes.
Well,
yes.
Unfortunately, I'm not in that camp. But,
Me too.
I know a lot of people with Christmas following on a Wednesday and then New Year's Eve following the following week. I know many people have, tried to sneak to get those extended vacations. If you take Monday off, I know a lot of places are closed on the 24th or some close early. So everyone's trying to get those breaks in or that 2-week break.
Yeah.
Excellent. How about yourself? Are you doing anything interesting for the holiday season besides working?
Besides working? No. I plan to do some side project stuff and having some time with my family over Christmas. But
that's good. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. But,
no, the family time is important. Time in general is important. I always say, and I've been big on this for a long time, and anyone who knows me closely understands how I feel about time. Where you spend your time is what's important, and where it should be important, because you don't get any time back. Any minute that you spend doing something is a minute that you spent doing something else, and you can't replenish the time that you have in life. So it's important to spend doing that some stuff. And everybody says do what you enjoy. Sometimes I enjoy working. Right? It sounds crazy, but sometimes I'm working on something, from the development point of view.
It depends what kind of work you're talking about.
And people say, "Oh, you're working so much." I'm like, "Well, I enjoy it because I'm fulfilled doing what I do. I'm fortunate that I'm one that enjoys what I do on a daily basis."
Well, that's your purpose, right?
Yeah,
sometimes purpose brings that.
So is that really? It factors into time anyway. But I hope you have a relaxing holiday season. It's and also welcome back. It's been a while since we spoke to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
And last time we spoke to you about some neat things. You had a cool app source app that's no longer there because I think they've added it to the AL language.
The VS Code app, yeah.
Yes, VS Code app. Excuse me, not app. Jeez, it's Friday. So just right now, just forget. This is why we don't do Fridays.
We keep saying not to do Fridays, but Fridays sometimes kind of creeps into our schedule.
I think because I say we're not doing Fridays, we're starting to have more and more things scheduled on Fridays because I have a couple recorded calls today on Friday. So we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
But yes, you had an interesting VS Code app, and I saw recently that you introduced a new one.
Absolutely.
For VS Code and that opened up a whole can of, I don't want to say can of worms, but a whole can of questions for me. But before we get into that, would you mind telling everyone a little bit about yourself, sir?
Yeah, sure. My name is Christoph. I'm founder of 365 Business Development. We are a small ISV in Germany. And we are focusing purely on Business Central and developing small apps with the only idea in mind to simplify work in BC. So we are not creating some huge extensions, apps, whatever you call it, with a new, contract management functionality or whatever.
He had to go there. No, I'm kidding.
Instead, we are just identifying pain points, things which are not perfect from our point of view, and try to fill them and try to make it easier for BC customers all over the world. And yeah, and that's why we are pretty much working with AL and BC, of course. And that's why I step into a lot of things like last time we spoke with the XML documentation stuff. So I thought about how we can expose our functionality to our partners, to customers, to make them understand how they can adopt and how they can use it. So XML documentation stuff is created because I think we need something like this. And Microsoft came up. And now the next one comes around the corner. And
Yes,
I think it could be pretty cool for the community, and that's why I started my next side project.
No,
That's
I like
incredible.
that. And to go back to what you're talking about the apps, and that's something that I've said with a lot of things, that it doesn't always need to be complicated. Sometimes to be successful, you just need to handle some of the basics. So having an app or an extension that does a simple task that's easy, that makes it easier or may work within the business process, is sometimes a little better than creating this whole big, thinking we need a big robust system or complete module, as you would, within the application to do some fancy thing. So I appreciate the apps that you're developing and putting out there in app stores to make the use of Business Central
Yeah, I'm
easier
not sure.
or different for
I'm not sure
customers.
that I would agree with easy apps, but small one, absolutely. Yeah, because some things were really challenging. I remember back in 2022, I think I had a recording with Steve about address validation, and we dived into this a little bit. And this is also a pretty small app, but it's in background. It was really tough to implement this, and also with direct printing and all this stuff we created. On the surface, it's just 1-2 pages and seamlessly integrated into BC, but in the background, it's much more, of course.
It's like an iceberg.
Exactly.
Well, I agree. Small to me, and for clarification, go back to easy for me does mean the smaller apps, and I'm not saying it takes away from the complexity of what it takes to develop an app, but easy for a customer to use to handle a small specific function is what I shoot for with those smaller apps. So they're smaller compartmentalized tasks in a sense, or they do specific functions and they do those functions very well. See, that's what I've always been told. Do what you know and do it well, right? So you can't do everything. So you have a new app within the Visual Studio, not AppSource, but within the Visual Studio marketplace. I get confused. And I think it's an interesting app. What is that application that you released recently?
Yeah, first of all, it's not. I think it's not just about the app. It's and the app is relying on a lot of work from other people, like Freddie, like Camille, which they did a great job. And basically, it's all about adopting NuGet to Business Central. And a lot of people, I think, in BC business still don't know what's NuGet is. And basically, it's kind of a distribution feed for packages, for app files, basically, or artifacts. And with this, with the introduction of NuGet into BC, which came from, as I said, Freddie and Camille, I think in 2023, they brought a whole new level of complexity into our development, but also a lot of opportunities. And we could use it. I think it was in summer of 2023 on BC Tech Days in Antwerp, where Freddie and Camille presented this, and we could use it from this point on. It was great, but actually nobody does. Nobody worked with it because a lot of people don't really understand why should I use it, what's the benefit, and how do I use it. And yeah, maybe we have a little time to talk about it. And
that's exactly why you're here, because When I hear a NuGet, and I know NuGet has been around, and you talked a little bit about it's a distribution system. I'd like to talk a little more deeper about that, how it works, what it does, and even more so how we can use it within our Business Central development process, our development workflow. I know NuGet's been around. I've heard about it with other application languages, and it's been around for quite a period of time. And, sometimes I hear a NuGet, I think of like the stuff within a candy bar, right? I think of like, what do they call that? Is that NuGet, Nugget, whatever they call that stuff that fills some of those chewy candy bars? But with that, so let's just take it back a step. So NuGet is a distribution system for packages. Can we talk about that a little bit deeper? Like, how does it work? We have this distribution system. How does it get the information? How does it work? And then even more so, if we could progress into how your application works or the extension that you wrote for Visual Studio Code can be applied to a Business Central app. There's a lot in that conversation right there. So I hope we have time.
I have time, of course. So NuGet is basically a standardized format on how to distribute artifacts to be as common as possible. To distribute artifacts for multiple platforms. So it's very, very popular in C# or .NET, but it's basically not focusing on one specific language. And what NuGet basically is a server. You can host it yourself. You can use Azure DevOps, for example, Azure DevOps feeds, which are also capable to serve as a NuGet server. Or, of course, you can use NuGet.org. What you are basically publishing is not just a pure app file and, I don't know, for example, a manifest or something like this. It's a special package, which is called NuGet package, NUPKG, basically is a file suffix. And inside of this package, there's a package manifest, which says, okay, who's the publisher? What's the identifier of this package? What's the name? What are the available versions? Or which is the available version right now? Which dependencies you have? And all this stuff. And this is all pretty common in BC world as well. So it was pretty natural to adapt to this instead of we invent the wheel. And what this basically brings to our table, I think it's not that important to understand what NuGet packages are. That's why there are people like Freddy, like Camille, and hopefully me to serve or to serve the community and provide tools. You just have to use, but you don't really need to understand what's technical inside of a NuGet package. There are already commandlets in BC Container Helper to create NuGet packages, to use the preferred naming, which Freddy and Camille and some other invented. Let's say it's this way, because in this case we are a little special because we have a publisher name. This publisher name can change over the versions. We have an app name. This app name can change. It's not a breaking change. The only thing which needs to stay forever is the app ID, basically. And the app ID is just a GUID, so it's not very friendly to search for an app ID or something like this. So they had to sort about, okay, how we name packages so even people and software can find the packages. And the big question is basically, what can you do with NuGet packages, and what brings NuGet to the table for BC development? And I think what's really important to understand is what type of artifacts do we have in BC? And basically we have 3 types. We have the classic app file with source code included. We have runtime packages, which are precompiled for a specific BC version, and also a localization. And we have symbols. And of course, we all produce, if we work in VS Code, and we click package, it compiles a regular app file with all the source code included. This app file is sent to the server recompiles it and or compiles it into C# and runs it on the BC server. Great. Runtime packages, as I said, are precompiled, so you don't have to do this compilation process again. But symbols are only references. So symbols are basically, if you extract the app file, it's basically just a huge JSON file which has all the references all over your application and so on. And these.
So by references, you're talking about references to the methods, to the properties, to the variables. Yes. So you can see the structure without seeing the code. You can see the structure of an app versus seeing the detail of it, so that you could communicate with it to use the events, the methods, and like.
Exactly. And basically, the symbols, we all know the command download symbols, but basically download symbols is not always true. So from as far as I know, if you download symbols from your own BC container, for example, and you have published the app with all the source code, you get the app file with all the source code. So it's not just the symbols. But basically the symbols are just a JSON file, a huge JSON file. And basically this is all you need to develop in VS Code. And this is all you need to compile your app with a dependency to another app. The only thing you need is the symbols. And this is a pretty interesting things for ISVs and also for Microsoft itself. So, well, let's start from another point. When we start to develop in VS Code app, what do we need? We need some kind of an BC instance right now, because we need to get the system application, we need to get the business foundation, base application, all this stuff, we need the symbols, basically. And every time you have to restore
we need the symbols.
a certain container or create a certain container in a certain version, and maybe in a certain localization, and then you download symbols and you try start coding, and if you want to switch to I don't know, another version, let's say you support more than just one version, you need to throw away your container, create an, I don't know, BC24 container, and do all this stuff again and again and again and again. And I think I don't know how fast your computers are we are working with, but I think you have to at least wait 5 minutes, I would say, for a completely new container.
For a new container, yes. So what you're referencing there, just to bring it back, is if we need to build an application for a different runtime or a different version of Business Central, we would need to create a container with that version, publish our extension, or download the symbols for that version of the business container. See, Friday, here we go. So we download the symbols for that version. We would then package our application built with the symbols for the specific version, publish them to our container, use the container helper command to get runtime packages. Yes, it does take a few minutes because you would have to, even with scripting all of that, because you can script that whole process.
Yeah.
But it does take time on, yes, and creating the, it downloads the artifacts to create the container. Then now you have to download your symbols, build your application, publish your application, get the runtime package.
And
I think it might take.
And you do that every single time.
Honest,
it might take a little more than 5 minutes.
From my side,
I'm thinking.
I know I'm a lazy person, definitely, and I have BC containers which are
efficient.
3
You're
months
not lazy.
old.
You're efficient.
4 months old, maybe. So it's not the latest version which I develop against, and I don't want to create it over and over again, and it takes just too much time for me. And so I thought about with the presentation from Freddie and Camille, what maybe we can do with all this NuGet stuff to make this faster and to give me the opportunity to say, okay, now I want to work against BC24. Next, I want to use BC 24.2 or 25.2 or whatever. And I just want to select it, hit one command, and start working. That was the basic idea. I don't want to create a container over and over again. To be honest, last year I started to work with Mac a little more, so I had actually the problem I can't restore a container to develop when I'm not in the office. I'm not sure.
Smart choice, by the way. That was a very smart choice to move to a Mac. Oh, we might have to end the conversation early.
Maybe I need some more time. Yeah. However,
you'll get there.
The container stuff was really a problem for me, and I thought, okay,
Yes.
how can I solve this? And the first idea, which was a pretty bad idea, was I just commit the AL packages folder into my repository. Bad idea. Really bad idea.
Yeah. Cringe. I just cringed when I heard that, because talk about wasted space. I even share my AL package folder across projects at workspaces because I only need I found one time on a computer where someone had the AL packages for each project.
Yeah.
Never mind a workspace, right? You can, the workspace has the setting where you can use the AL packages and then individual projects. I think they saved after they got rid of all of the AL packages, and I showed them how you can specify the folder and share it. They saved, I think it was like 17 gig or something. Like, it was an absurd amount of space that they were using just with AL packages, which to Chris's point, I call them throwaway because you need to download them for the version that you're working with. So if you're doing 25, then 25.1, 25.2, you start building all of those, and then you multiply that times all the individual projects that you may be working on. It's a lot of space.
Yeah, absolutely. But as I said, I was in the problem. I had a Mac container, doesn't work.
The Mac is not the problem with having to check in the symbols.
Yeah,
don't try to blame the Mac.
No. But it was my starting point. So it's just the start of a journey,
Yes.
Yeah, and as I said, I recognized very, very fast that's not a good idea to do. So I decided to dive into this a little bit, and really fast came up with some PowerShell scripts and invoked NuGet directly and created NuGet packages configurations to download the packages I needed. And it took some time, but at some point I said, okay, maybe it's worth to invest a little more time into this and integrate this right into VS Code. And then I thought about, okay, how you can do this. And of course, I looked to the big brother Visual Studio, because there it's already there for I don't know how many years, and it works. It's intuitive. So why not keep this as an template and try to do this in VS Code as well. And right before Directions in here, to be honest, because I promised this on Twitter, so that's why I was a little in hurry. I just published the first 2 or 3 preview versions, which are already working, but are far away from perfect and far away from I would say productive, or usable for productive development. But the most important thing for me is that it's not just about local VS Code development. When we start adopting to NuGet and creating all the artifacts, the NuGet artifacts, like the package config I told about, and put this into our repo, we get a whole new dimension in DevOps or GitHub as well. So in our pipelines, we can also restore packages directly from NuGet feeds.
So where that's helpful then would be if you're working on an extension within AL extension for VS Code, and you want to put it into a pipeline, you no longer have to get, if you have a dependency of another extension, it could be from an ISV, could be from Microsoft.
You have at least one one extension is at least two extensions are always in place. It's system app and application.
So that way
itself.
you can build
So
based on it for a specific
least two
version
dependencies.
or even just the latest version. So by putting in the NuGet path,
Yep.
right, to download the, which we can talk about how that works in a moment. So when you're going to build, you basically put a reference for the dependency. It will download the symbols from the NuGet server, whichever one you're using that you had mentioned, and use those artifacts for you to package and build your extension.
And create a container. And as long as you don't want to execute tests in it, it's fine. And what I tried as a prototype, it's not ready yet for CI/CD purposes. Is back in the days we now have, I think, 7 or 8 apps. And back in the days, well, right now also as a productive, we run each and every night, each and every app against current, next minor, next major, and run our tests and do all these. And right now, it's still working with our time frame in the night. But at some point, if we releasing new apps and new apps and new apps, it will not fit into the night anymore. So what my idea currently is of course I want to run my tests, but the whole process of compilation and creating a container, I don't need to use this for each and every app. So what I dream about is I have one pipeline, which is just creating the artifacts by downloading symbols, packaging, push this to our own NuGet feed. And there's another pipeline, which is just downloading one artifact or one app after another, publishes, executes tests, remove it or let it there, whatever you want, and do this again and again and again. So you'd only need one container. And because of the isolation in tests, you don't have any side effects if you run multiple tests with separate or with different apps. So this is what I think we can save a lot of time. Side effects between the apps. If we disable the isolation, for example, what you can do in tests, then you can see, okay, is my app 1 somehow influencing my app 2? Because you do this all in one environment, and you do this much faster than previously. Because you don't need to create a container, I don't know, 8 times in my situation, or 8 times 3, basically, because current next and next mail. Yeah. Exactly.
Yes, because you're doing the current, the next minor, the next major. So you're doing 3 builds in essence for each
Instead of
app.
one.
So with this, so even take it. So you're doing it internally. You have 8 application extensions that you have for Business Central.
Yeah.
And with those 8 applications, you publish them to NuGet. You push them to NuGet. And then you can keep multiple versions of those in there. And is that the intent? So that if you have version 24.1.9000, 24.1.10,000, do you keep all of them in there, or is it just for each build of Business Central?
Basically we are very focused on just having one code base for all the BC versions we are supporting. We're not just supporting cloud. This would be way too easy. We're also supporting on-prem, and so we are typically we are supporting from BC 18 to the latest version. So what we do to master this is we are working a lot with preprocessor symbols, so compiler directives, and say if BC
I love
18,
those, by the way.
blah blah blah. So and this is working pretty well, but it limits us. Of course, for example, if we want to use namespaces in our apps, we need a lot of this hashtag if BC blah 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 stuff, and this is not very readable. But as long as we stick to the on-prem customers and say, okay, we want to just serve one code base, I think we need to do this. And yeah, but nevertheless, we store all our packages, at least the latest version of each minor version we created. We store them forever. Why? To be honest, I don't know why. I decided this sometime and never thought about it again. But yeah, you see all the packages in NuGet, and you can reference to it. And if you, for example, having multiple code bases for the different BC versions, of course, you can do this with what Freddy called, or what NuGet called it, indirect packages. So you have basically one package which is empty, but which references to another package or another package per version. And this package has a different naming and so on, but that's not relevant. But it's more like a sitemap from a website. So you come there and you say, okay, I'm looking for 21 point whatever, and it say, okay, go this way. I'm looking for 25.1. Okay, go this way. That's basically all the magic behind an indirect package.
So an indirect package allows you to have multiple versions, and that would be useful for those application extensions that if somebody's working with an on-premises install where they have a specific version, oftentimes you would call the ISV and say, I need runtime version 18, a runtime version for 18.4. Can you send it to me?
Yeah, right.
So doing it this way, where it would be helpful to an application publisher, when I say application publisher, anybody that has an app that would be used as a dependency potentially, you can get it from NuGet. In that case, would it be the entire runtime version or just the symbols?
That's up to the publisher, basically. So what we are doing, and some other ISVs I know about, they are shipping runtime packages, the whole complete runtime package with the precompiled source code for the specific localization and BC version in NuGet feeds. But I also know one publisher which just ships symbols over the NuGet feeds, but that's also fine.
Okay, it's up to the ISV how they like to distribute it, but where it becomes helpful from an app publisher is they can publish the information for the specific versions, including the latest version,
yeah,
to make it easier for everybody to have a dependency based upon that. I want to get into your app because this sounds like a lot. I understand the process now of what it does. I have a good sense of how it could be applicable to me, I think, in my daily development. One thing that I was thinking of when you asked this question, when you were talking about this process. So how does it know the validity of the package? It may or may not be such a case with some Business Central development or not, depending upon what the application does. But how can it be prevented that I don't publish an application saying that I'm the Microsoft system application or Chris's application development company? How do I know that the validity of what's in that NuGet package is from the publisher that says it is, and it's a trusted publisher?
Yeah, that's a problem, basically. So there are public NuGet feeds like NuGet.org, and you as a publisher can go to NuGet.org and say, okay, I reserve the prefix Microsoft dot for my apps, and I can publish apps with this prefix. And that's kind of a security mechanism. But when I reference to what Freddy said in BC Tech Days, and I think Camille said on Directions EMEA this year, don't trust NuGet.org, because you don't know what's inside there. It could be anything. But all the Microsoft itself has 3 NuGet feeds right now. One is for Microsoft symbols, one is for Microsoft apps, and one is for app source symbols. So each and every app source app is already published by Microsoft in the latest version. So there is a NuGet feed available where you can search for each and every app source app and put a reference on it and use it.
So Microsoft, so they have a server themselves for their symbols,
It's basically DevOps. It's a DevOps instance, Azure DevOps instance, and they are serving us a public NuGet feed or 3 public NuGet feeds basically from there. Yeah,
including all the apps in App Source for the latest version of the app that's in App Source.
Absolutely. And at this point, when you submit a new app in Marketplace, it will be automatically populated to the NuGet feeds as well. So you don't have to care as an app source publisher. You don't have to care about all this stuff.
That's pretty cool.
It is, definitely. And
that's
and additionally,
now I'm anxious to know how I use all of this.
And additionally, a lot of ISVs, to be honest, it's currently it's a little Wild West. So there are naming conventions. It's pretty much the same like the early days in AL. We started with cod number.name.al, and then we changed this all, and now it's the object name.codeunit.al, and I see a lot of people which are using some completely different naming conventions and deactivate the code corps for complaining about this stuff. And in NuGet, it's pretty much the same. We have AL now in place, I think, from 2018, I think. And the possibility was always there to do things like NuGet. But no one did. And as I said last year at Tech Days, I heard more or less the first time from this topic. So it's 5 years later. And of course, ISVs like we are had the problem to you reference that you go to a publisher and say, hey, I need a runtime package for version 18, 20, whatever. And then the most of them say, okay, I need a day, and then I will serve it to you. And some other ISVs came up with the idea and say, no, I don't want to do this. I ship my packages as runtime packages precompiled, and you can download this just from my website or from a universal package feed or from whatever you want to use. And we, for example, we have just a download page. Go there, there's the apps, select your version, click download, happy. But this is the old one. When we started to adapt to NuGet, we will deprecate this site and completely switch to NuGet because it's much easier to maintain for us. But all the publishers had the problem, okay, how do we serve customers, other partners with our packages in certain versions, which are not in app source? And they all invented clever solutions, but it is how it is. When you ask 10 people, you got 13 answers how you can do things, and that's how true. It is currently. So naming conventions from the packages is pretty important for software. L project, we have a manifest, and in best case scenario, we have an app ID, we have the publisher name, and we have the app name. As I said, publisher name and app name are fluent. They can change over the time. So the only thing which you can rely on is the app ID. And you specify a minimum version you support, which is also quite complicated because, let's be honest, how often do you update the version number in your dependencies? Yeah, right.
Depends. It depends. I personally would go and update it because if I have a dependency on an app that adds a new method or adds something new, I'll go in and change it on the app that uses that dependency. And I will say, yesterday I was running some tests and I looked at the app file because I had to update the app file version of the tests, and they were all version 20. And this was for version 25, so I updated them to version 25.
Yeah, so, it's the same with me. I'm lazy, as I said, and then you have to think, okay, how can a software determine which version is what you're actually looking for? when you just have one container where you specified which version the container is running of, it's pretty easy because you just say, hey, I have this app, please give me a version, and you just get the version which is basically there. But when you have an artifacts feed where you have all the versions from the beginning to wherever you are today, you have to select the right one. And this is a little complicated. And so we need things like naming conventions. We need things like rules where the partner is working with. So some partners I know about are just using the BC numbers. So 25.1, 25.2, and then their version is following. Some are completely in their own number range. So it's tough for a piece of software.
So if I'm an application developer, I want to go from this from both ways because I understand the concept of how it works. One thing we talked about from an ISV point of view, you had mentioned, or from a consumer point of view, I do want to talk about how to consume this, right? I understand the process now as far as conceptually how it works. You had mentioned not to trust NuGet.org all the time, or to be leery of the extensions in there and verify that it's authentic. Or someone could host their own. If I'd like to host my own, you said I could set it up in DevOps, right? Or is what you use for example. What if I don't want to host my own? Does my only option NuGet.org? Does Microsoft have something? Are there other places that you could put this where it could be authenticated that it's you that is actually sharing this file? Or
there are different providers. The most common is basically NuGet.org, and if you use the verification stuff, and if you keep your stuff together, the secrets together, and all this stuff, it's pretty secure that we are working with the right publisher. But what you have to keep in mind is the only reference we have is the app ID. So when you download using NuGet, basically we are looking for the app ID. And if someone is not that friendly and uses your same app ID, because that's basically possible. You can just specify any GUID you want and push this to NuGet.org. It doesn't need to prefix with Microsoft. So it's not secured, but maybe the software thinks, hey, there's the app ID, so this is the right one, and I'm downloading this one. And this is how, so we have to go from one thing, which is just the app ID, to a whole complex NuGet naming thing, which in Freddy's preference, it contains the publisher name dot the app name dot maybe symbols dot maybe country code dot app ID at the last. And if you have these components in the name, we can make the software, the for example, my extension, or also NuGet, the NuGet executable itself, can make pretty sure that you are running against the right publisher. But when you're just seeking with the app ID, but that's not that much of a problem. All the big ISVs have now kind of NuGet feeds in place, or universal packages feeds in place. So all the big ones have it, and as far as I know, the big ones which do not have have not a NuGet feed, they're working on it. And if we serve more and more tools, Freddy did a great job in BC Container Helper. Patrick did also a great job with his DevOps extension with his DevOps task. I think it was a task to download packages, and also his NuGet helper extension in VS Code. So there's another one in place already. And so as more tools we have, as more partners, as more ISVs will use it, and I think in the first days I also said, okay, of course we reserved our prefix at NuGet.org, but we never published a single package there because we don't need it. We have DevOps and all the others too.
Okay, so now we have multiple feeds that are available, and the authenticity of a NuGet package, it's not just an AL thing. That's just the way NuGet works in general. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not, it's something to be aware of, and just make sure that you know the source of where you're getting the file and what you're getting with it. So an ISV can publish their extensions. I understand the concept of that to their NuGet feed, right? Now I want to write an extension that is dependent upon the Microsoft application, the Microsoft system application, the base app, the system app, and the foundation app. So I have those three dependencies right from the beginning. Then also now you have an extension that I, think is a wonderful extension, but maybe I want to make one slight change to the process. So I have to use yours as a dependency. I'll subscribe to event and do something. How do I get it? And how do I know where it is? And then how do I get it within my application? Because now, as you talked about, I could create a container. I get the symbols from you, or I download it into my, if it's an online environment, I can install it in the online environment. If it's a container, I can get the package and install it, download my symbols, and that symbol is there. In this new case, I'm no longer going to a BC environment, whether it be a container-based environment or an online environment, to get the symbols. I'm going to a NuGet feed. How does that work? That is where now I'm stuck. How do I know to go to this post office box to get the file for this particular version? Like, how do I do that as an AL developer?
Basically, as an AL developer, there's no difference. The only thing which changes is the command you executed. So you're not hitting AL download symbols. Instead, you may hit restore NuGet packages. And what happens? The NuGet package will be downloaded. So the package will be identified, it will be downloaded, it will be extracted, and the app file from in the package will be placed in the AL packages folder.
So the only thing I have to do is rebuild NuGet packages?
Restore, yeah, basically.
Oh, restore, but is that with, okay, I want to talk about your extension soon, but is that within the AL language? To restore NuGet packages, that's within your VS Code
that's what I
extension.
did, and that's also what Patrick did with his NuGet helper extension.
Okay, so within your extension, what's the name of the extension that's in the VS Code marketplace if anybody wants to search for it?
ALGet.
Not NuGet.
ALGet.
ALGet. Okay, so with ALGet, I installed the extension. The ALGet will look at the dependency in my app file. And then based on that dependency, how does it know where to go?
So built in or baked into the extension, of course, the Microsoft feeds are there. So you don't have to specify the Microsoft feeds. The app source feed, the app symbols, and the MS symbols and the MS apps. So it's all three in there. And by default, it looks up to this feeds at first. And tries to download the apps from there. And if it doesn't find the symbols, the artifacts or the NuGet packages in there, we will look for custom feeds, which you can specify. For example, we have some custom feeds for our own apps, for our internal stuff, and also for partners we are working with. And then it looks there and says, okay, maybe I find something, and then it downloads it, basically.
Oh, okay. So that makes it much easier. So in your settings, you can specify the additional feeds to work with. So as an AL developer, I install your extension, which already makes it so much easier because I just have to do, rebuild. What did you say? It's rebuild. I always want to say rebuild. Restore. I knew it wasn't rebuild.
So I just recycled it.
NuGet.
No, it's good. It's good. I'll have to get the restore. So if I click restore, it works. I like that. So then if I have a dependency with an ISV or somebody else, I would ask again. So what I would need to do is ask them, where are your NuGet packages? And if they have them, they would send me the URL, right? That says, here's where my packages are. And then within your extension, there's a setting where you could list all of those custom ones. And when you go to look for the packages, you go through those custom settings. Oh, that makes it so much easier. See, now I don't even need to understand this.
It's like Lego pieces, right? Like it's just like it's you're building something and it's like, hey, I need something very specific. I'm going to look at this bucket, or in this case, NuGet. If it already exists, perfect. I don't have to build it from scratch.
And what's a pretty
Sounds like that.
pretty nice thing is, at some point, we are not there at the moment, and maybe not next year, but at some point, maybe we got the idea of NuGet also into the BC world, because everyone who ever works with .NET, like C# or something like this, and started with JSON, everyone knows Newton Self.json. No one writes his own class to parse JSON files, and it's not from Microsoft. And everyone used just this as a library. And maybe at some point, we are not just the community, the Dynamics community will not just publish apps, commercial apps, but also apps which are some kind of a library and solving a problem which is not that important that it can be placed into a system application or something like this, but it serves a specific need, and maybe we can go to this as well, at least in my fantasy, and say, okay, I don't need to create and let's stick with the JSON example. I don't need to create a parser for JSON, and I can just use the package from publisher XY because I know this one because the community talked about it or whatever, and I just use this as a reference in my package, and I don't have to reinvent.
I like it. I think of like the type helper code unit. I think of some of those, what I call those utility libraries. A lot of individuals make utility libraries that are available on GitHub that I could download and use and incorporate. But in what you're saying, I like that idea. Now we could have even a community-driven library, right? That you could call a quote open source library for AL that people can contribute to. Again, if you want to reference the JSON parser that you had mentioned, that we can just continually build upon from the community point of view to help AL developers. So I agree with you. In that point, it's not a marketplace, right? Or app source gallery.
It's like Amazon.
I like what you said with Lego. It's pretty much like Lego. You don't do all the components over and over again. You just reuse what's already there. And if there's an issue and the maintainer or the maintainers found this, they fix it. And it can be community projects. It can be open sourced, and it's not necessarily must be necessarily controlled by Microsoft, which is not a bad thing at all. So it's great, but not everything belongs into a system app.
No, I agree with you there. Yeah. And then also sometimes you get, I don't want to say it's better. Sometimes Microsoft has their efforts focused on certain areas of the application. It's their application, justifiably. I don't fault them, right? Nobody has the resources, whether it be dollars or talent, to do everything for everybody, right? So they have a timeline for what they're working on with the application. But if there was a way to pull in some things where others could create beneficial tools to supplement that, similar to what they're doing with the contribution pilot, which is great because it allows community members to enhance the functionality of the application in addition to what they have on their plan. This would create a list of tools as technology comes out, because anytime there's a new technology, everyone's like, well, how do we communicate with web services, for example? How can I consume API endpoints within Business Central? I know we have the libraries in there now, but if the libraries don't exist, if somebody could create them, use them as a dependency, everybody could build it. And in some cases, it's better because you have multiple eyes looking at it. Versus somebody creating one thing that they're, putting in a black box. I like that idea. See, I think this will open up. And I'm still waiting for AL.NET.
It will need a lot of time because we have one big problem in AL, which prevents from doing this right now, and that's basically the object ID. So.
Oh, forget it. I was hopeful that object ID would go away. Many years ago.
I thought they've been talking about that for a while, no?
From what I see and hear and what I read, right? Everything you read on the internet's true. is, there's been discussions about the object IDs, and I guess a lot of the core foundation architecture on the service tier still uses the IDs, so they'd have to do an overhaul of that. And part of me just wants to say, just do it. We're getting to the point where now we have, naming collisions is something we have to look at. We have to look at object ID collisions. They're still both unique. There's we have now multiple unique identifiers for an object, which is limiting. So I would love to get rid of the object ID. Now, I know the challenges with the object ID because you have licensing for on-premises, because you still license the objects that you're going to utilize. On the online, you don't have that limitation because you still can work between the 50,000 and 99,000 range. But I would love the object IDs to go away on the field level as well as the table level, or the object level, the field level and tables, and then also the object ID for the objects in there. And maybe I won't be around when they finally get rid of it.
When that time comes.
That's what I would like. We should have, Kris, next year we have to put a note. We need to have, what are your 12 wishes for Christmas? And I think one of my wishes for Christmas, my number one, would be get rid of the object IDs because they're just a pain.
I would say save this wish for the next 2 years. I think this.
You think 2 years?
Maybe
2 years.
Yeah,
DC is developing very, very
that
fast, but I think in a base code of all the service stuff and platform, there's a lot of stuff with object IDs and so on. So they have to rethink a lot of things like record references. They all work with object IDs, and
yes,
so I think this is not an easy task to serve. But of course, this is preventing from shipping libraries, because when you develop a library, you have to, okay, what object ID did I take for this, and how do I make sure that in my customer tenants it's not already taken by PTE or by whatever. It's tough.
Yes, I see. Good luck. So you'd have to have the app source range, which is the only thing that you could have to limit it. So, but you still think 2 years? That's interesting. 2 years, we'll talk and see if it's gone.
I think just look back. As I said, I think 2018 BC came really up, and all the naming and also and see what happens in this time. We got a lot of things. We got a lot of cool things. We got interfaces, namespaces. We also we still have prefix and suffix, but at least we have namespaces now.
Well, I think,
and
maybe the namespaces will help speed that along, because now we're getting more and more conventional with the development within AL. It's almost C# like in a sense, right? With a hint of Pascal still. So that would be my wish list. That's what I want Santa to bring, but I won't get that this year, and I'm hoping that I'll see it.
Me too.
In my lifetime. Well, in my career.
As I said, it's in my wildest dreams. Maybe at some point we will be there, and we will use packages not just as commercial apps or free apps in app source range, but also as components for our solutions, for our PTEs, for our ISV solutions, and not every ISV needs to create a text editor, and not every ISV needs to create an I don't know, the common stuff which comes over and over again.
No, there's some things that I use repetitively in apps. A lot of the whole, whether you have I create some of the same functions for communicating with web services over and over and over and over again. And it's, in essence, they're all the same. You just pass in different properties with different values. So there isn't a need to, have everybody create some of that. I call that basic stuff. Like it's the art of what you're writing isn't the consuming of the web service, right? Or the connecting and downloading. It's the processing of the data. It's what you do within the user interface for the customer that makes it better. But the task of connecting to a site and downloading the file shouldn't be something that you have to write over and over and over again. Just use a library. Because we all create our own libraries to do different functions, which is great.
As I said, there are some libraries which are which are worthy to get integrated into the system app, for example, or whatever, or business foundation or whatever it's right at. But there are also some apps which are not worthy to get shipped to each and every customer of Business Central, but will maybe be worthy to shipped as an component which can be used for, let's say, 10% of the customers, and it's not worthy to do this in the stock in plain vanilla, but maybe at some other point.
No, I do like that, and that's I like the approach that they're taking. Forget of having them automatically installed or not. With some of the core features, they have as separate features, and you have to turn the features on or off, or you have to enable the apps, install the apps or not. I like the ability to have separates because, like you said, not everybody needs contract management in their Business Central environment. Sometimes introducing some of these apps may create issues for environments. So I like the option to be able to choose the features that I want, even with the Shopify integration. Shopify integration is a great application, but it's not relevant for everybody. So why have it running? Why haven't go through it? Because even some of these, if you look at some performance analysis, some of these great extensions, such as contract management, show up in any function that you're doing, such as posting a sales order, which doesn't even use contracts. So
you're right. Absolutely.
Sometimes I'm right. Not always, just sometimes. It's my new tradition to be correct on Friday. Okay, so that simplifies things. So from an ISV point of view, they can publish their stuff on a NuGet feed somewhere. That we'll have to have a longer conversation sometime on how I could do that. But for the consuming of that, your uGet extension for Visual Studio Code can simplify the consumption for a user such as myself, because it reads the dependencies in the app file. It will go look for the feed. You have the standard feeds in there for your applications as well as Microsoft's, and then the ability for a developer to put in a path for the other extensions. And if you can't find an extension, then it just goes to Business Central, the Business Central environment as it was, or?
Yeah.
Excellent. I like this. I want to play with this more. I'm going to do some experiment with this. And now I understand this NuGet life cycle. Well, sir, thank you for taking the time to explain this to me and make it much easier for me to understand how NuGet is going to help myself and other AL developers with their continued creation of Business Central extensions. And I appreciate you creating that tool to make it easier, because when we were talking about it, I understood the process and the theory, but it sounded like it was going to be complicated to be able to put all this together to download these NuGet packages. And I appreciate you creating such a wonderful tool for everyone to use.
I commend you for taking the time to do that.
Yes.
But, yes. We're all limited in time, and you putting that effort in, it helps the world.
Well, it'll go back to what we started talking about. Time's the most precious resource. Once you use it, you don't get it back. And you're spending your time to do that, to save time for everybody else, to give us the opportunity to do better, do different things with our time. So I appreciate that. And, anybody else that has some of those extensions. If anybody would like to learn more about the applications that you have, about NuGet or uGet, what's the best way to contact you?
I think the easiest way is directly through our website. As I said, I'm the founder of the company, so I will always be available for anything, even if it's the community-driven things like uGet, but also our commercial stuff. So it's our website, 365businessdev.com, dev like development. And yeah, I'm also happy if anyone will jump into uGet and contribute. So it's of course open sourced, and it's published on GitHub. And if you see some issues, just report them. I will be very happy. I currently work for the first not preview release, for the first real one, which a lot of things in background have changed, and also with Yeah, some preparations for DevOps tasks. So I will also ship an open source DevOps tasks, DevOps extension to which fits perfectly into the BC world. You can basically use the NuGet task in DevOps as well, but they have some garbage which will be left over on the build server, and I don't like this. That's why I did a own one, an own task, but it will be also free of charge, and just will be available for everyone who likes. And I would be very happy for any contribution if it's an issue which is reported or whatever.
No, that's great that you're making that available for the community and making it easier for everybody. And also, it's nice that it's open source, similar to what we just talked about, to have libraries that the community can use and others can contribute to. So again, thank you again for all that you do. Thank you for creating such an extension to help the AL developers in the Business Central world, as well as giving us a crash course on NuGet and how it can benefit us.
Thanks for having me.
No, but it's our pleasure. We appreciate your time, and I hope that you have a great holiday season. We'll have to have you back on again to follow up on this NuGet when you add all this great tools, and maybe we can go through a process or an exercise.
Do a screen share.
Yes, I really would like to see now how this works. I visualize it, but now next time we'll go through the process. Maybe we can teach, an old dog, new tricks, as they say. But with that, I hope you have a great holiday season, sir. Enjoy the time with your family. It's well-deserved, and it's also important. And I look forward to talking with you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Later, Kris.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.